Good day, everyone. As a completion to our finals for the life and works of Rizal, we are going to perform our video theme named Rizal in 2022, How the Generation of Today Practiced Rizal's Teachings and Advocacies. Regarding the final theme, we thought about the topic how the youth apply their knowledge from Dr. Jose Rizal's works for this election 2022. I would like to introduce my group mates first. First is Sandra Dalida, Jean Mercado, Cassandra Joy Siazon, Catherine Simbol, Edel Queen Tolentino. And now we can proceed with the presentation. Jose Rizal is known as the national hero of the Philippines. He is a Filipino native and one of the most venerated personalities in Philippine history. Rizal was born in Calamba, Laguna on June 19, 1861. Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo are Rizal's two most well-known works, which are still frequently read and studied by students in the Philippines. Through his works, which spurred the Philippine Revolution, political leader Jose Rizal reflected the growing national consciousness of many Filipinos who fought Spanish colonial rule and desired to attain democratic rights. Rizal was executed by firing squad at Bagumbayan on December 30, 1896 on accusations of political conspiracy, sedition, and rebellion against the Spanish government in the Philippines.
What is youth for Dr. Jose Rizal? The concept of youth, as of Dr. Jose Rizal, the youth are said to be the hope of the people because they are the new generation that is full of hope to change society. Youth symbolizes the new generation. Too often, young people can be said to be resilient, and when they notice bad things in society, they work out a way to rectify it. Youth people will also be the leaders of our country in the coming decades. So it's great to see that even at a young age, they are seeking change that will benefit the majority. The youth, according to Rizal, how can the youth help the development of our country if they are not given adequate education? Some of his work reveal how important history is in shaping the individual, group, and nation. But if we look at the youth of the present time, the youth who are engaged in wrongdoing, we can still say that youth is the hope. Rizal's exile was the punishment but a blessing. Youth is the hope of the people, a term we often hear from the elders who came from the Dr. Rizal youth is the hope of the people, and through education, we help our people to more to show our talent and from being truly patriotic. Painting and drawing, reading, and activities related to the strengthening of the body is his preoccupation. Help a student understand the importance of flow of the youth.
For the introduction about election 2022, the campaign period for the national election this 2022 started last February 8, 2022 until May 8, 2022. So last May 9, 2022 is the national and local election here in the Philippines will start deciding thousands of positions throughout this nation, including who will change Rodrigo Duterte as a president for the next 6 years. So there are 67.5 million Filipino and 1.7 million registered overseas Filipino voters and many other Filipinos abroad that can be the key in influencing the voting choices of their families back home that are allowed to vote here in the Philippines. People will vote for the presidency, vice presidency, 12 Senate seats, 300 lower house seats, and roughly 18,000 local positions from city mayors and provincial governors to local councils, seats for 7,000 islands in our country. Voters must choose one candidate for each of the national positions and their choice of congressional representative, governor, mayor, and councilors. The presidential contenders were the son and namesake of dictator Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Vice President Leni Robredo, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso, retired boxing Manny Pacquiao, former police chief Ping Lacson, former presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella, Leody de Guzman, Norberto Gonzales, Jose Montemayor, and Faisal Mangondatu. So there are 10 people vying to replace President Rodrigo Duterte, but only 2 have a chance to replace him, which is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and VP Leni Robredo. During election rally, Philippine presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. recognizes the audience. Amidst the killing and financial failure, he has tried to portray his father's dictatorial regime as a golden age for the Philippines. While Leni Robredo, the current vice president, is running a campaign of good governance and the abolition of corruption. Politics here in the Philippines can be a dangerous business, with the possibility of war during both campaigning and the election itself. Election is very important because whenever there is a formal decision making in electing individuals to run under general law to serve the people, the election process is critical. It has its own set of rules. When corruption occurs within or outside of the election process, or when some officials violate the rules, the process becomes unfair. The goal of an efficient election process is to have a smooth flow and to be fair in selecting leaders who run for the position. Voters have the right to choose who they want to vote for, but voters must choose the contenders that have a plan for the good of our country and not for corruption and killings.
What is patriotism? Patriotism is defined as a person's pride, adoration, and love for his or her nation. It is about allegiance to the country as a whole, not to a political party or politician. Patriotism is a positive expression of national pride. Also, is a feeling that people have for a nation, but it can also lead to patriotic behavior. Patriotism also implies to us that someone is prepared to put their life on the line for our wonderful country. It means we should be grateful for our freedom and never take it for granted. When Old Glory is raised, lowered, or passes by, patriotism means paying attention. It's voting and letting our elected official know how we feel about the topics as part of our governmental system. At this time, we should be extra grateful for our brave personnel who are putting their lives on the line to keep the country safe. Here are the some approaches to express our devotion of our country, the Philippines. A patriotism means to me supporting our country in good times and bad times, never losing trust in our country, and commemorating those who have served in the defense of our country, both living and dead or retired or active. A patriotism entails standing by allowing our nation, especially when it faces adversity. Even when things are not exactly how you want them to be, you still love our nation. Devotion to our country entails sticking by it regardless of circumstances and fighting to improve it. Also, it entails maintaining faith in our country at all times. You believe in the ideas upon which our country was formed and you stand by them. You don't give up just because things is not working on the way you planned. You have faith in our country to get back track when it has strayed. Flying our country's flag, whether at home, at work, at school, or at events, show it is patriotism. Flying the flag demonstrates that You have value of our country and are committed to it. Flying the flag does not imply that you agree with everything that has occurred in the past, but rather that you adore our nation and all it has to offer. The voting is one of the best ways to preserve the ideas on which our country was created. If you have opportunity, volunteer to work at the polls during an election to observe our government in action. The patriotism is our devotion for our nation, regardless of the challenges and faces. It is our people's united commitment to defend this lovely country that we call home. These Philippines has united. How you treat people who have served this nation, both active and retired, living or dead, demonstrate patriotism. Your attitude toward that can demonstrate your respect. You can shake their hand, thank them for their service, tell them they are heroes, and offer any assistance as you can. The patriotism entails preserving the graves of those who have died clean, orderly, and undamaged. The patriotism does not imply that our country is ideal, rather, it implies that we aspire to be the best that we can be.
Nationalists are recognized as an all-encompassing classification of human beings, assigning each individual to a specific nation. Nationalism requires the majority of human activity as having a national character. Nations have symbols, a cultural heritage, national music, and literature. Individuals share national values and the sense of national identity. They admire the national hero, they eat the national dish, and they also participate in the national sports.
Nationalism brings together people of all languages, genders, religions, cultures, and ethnicities. People who share the same language, nationality, as well as faith or who happen to be politically similar or any combination of those things may desire to use their own country and a government that reflects the things those who wish to preserve, exemplify, and develop. So nationalism is the belief that all nations are equitable and have the same right to self-determination, which includes the right to exist, develop, and form their own sovereign nation-state. Nationalism seeks to put an end to wars between nations. A nation-state would never attack another state in order to conquer their territory or people.
There are a few ways to show nationalism. First is remember and honor the sacrifices made by our heroes in the service of our nation. There were a great number of Filipinos who gave their lives in the sake of democracy, freedom, and independence. Some battled with the force of their pens and tongues, while others fought with the power of their guns and arms. Each individual has a unique method of expressing their admiration and respect for our nation. For our generation, let us recognize and appreciate the sacrifices and dedication of our heroes to our nation and its people. And number two, everyone should be respected and our traditions should be valued. Filipinos are known for their courtesy and respect. Many Filipinos continue to demonstrate and cherish their moral values and traditions even in modern times. To maintain these positive traditions, such as honoring our elders and others, utilizing po at opo, being hospitable, and being religious, we Filipinos must continue to practice them as long as we are alive. And the third is be informed of the issues that are affecting our country. We need to be informed of and up to date on the important topics that are taking place in the country. extend assistance to those in need, particularly those who have been affected by natural catastrophes such as typhoons, floods, and other such events. And number 4, make a positive contribution as a citizen. Be hardworking and productive, not just for our own benefit, but also for the benefit of our country. Serve the people, and you will serve our country. And the 5th is preserve the Filipino culture. The Philippines is a treasure trove of diverse and vibrant cultural features. Be proud of your heritage and work to preserve it since it is a priceless asset. We must preserve them for the sake of future generations.
For patriotism, addressing a university audience, I have selected 3 points in the life and writing of Dr. Rizal for your consideration. First is his patriotism. This university must devote its best efforts to teaching the students of today and those of coming generation that form of pure and unselfish patriotism that we find in the writing and sayings of Dr. Jose Rizal. We have been gratified to follow the course in debate and in action of the student of this university in devoting their attention in a purely non-partisan way to the consideration of public questions of the day. But I address myself to the faculty as well as to the students for consideration of the form which that patriotism should take. In the days of my grandfather, young men in America went to Germany to study at universities. That was the golden age when the teachings and memory of Goethe, Schiller, Lessing, and Heine inspired the youth of the land and brought about a political movement that was crushed and ended in 1848, and the death of liberalism and the beginning of modern autocracy. Those of us that were educated in German literature can scarcely understand the Germany of the last 3 decades. And yet, in my opinion, their devotion to the religion of brutality and force is to be found in the teachings of their modern university professors. An example that has terrified all mankind and threatened the liberties of the world. So I say the teaching of pure patriotism must always be dedicated to the promotion of liberties, the liberty of thought of the individual, to the care of the welfare of the common people, and for the progress and advancement in modern science of learning of the people of the Philippine Islands.
What is nationalism for Jose Rizal? So, Jose Rizal did not convey his beliefs on nationalism verbally, but rather demonstrated them through his acts, which is why he is known as the father of Filipino nationalism. Rizal himself had highlighted the importance of acknowledging one's ancestors, despite the fact that he was fluent in multiple different languages. He had always professed a strong affection for his home language. He also admired the outstanding creativity and workmanship of Filipinos, and while he was not well known for it, he was a fan of indigenous Philippine textiles. Many of his paintings also depicted the natural beauty of the Philippines and the people that live there. Rizal, who was an environmental activist, was worried about the environment as well. So, as an example, when living in exile in the Pitan, he engaged in farming, planting trees and crops, and demonstrating to the locals how to increase agricultural output using improved methods like as irrigation and other scientific approaches. Rizal's desire to study and educate oneself with skills and competence not only aided his personal development. but it also contributed to the advancement of the nation and his fellow Filipinos, which was a major accomplishment in his time.
First, let me define the election. Election is the process of electing a political leader or government representative. In democracy, most citizens' primary means of influencing how their country is governed is through their right to vote. When the government decides to organize an election, citizens will have the opportunity to vote. The politician must persuade voters to vote for them to win an election. Each political party must define its policies and action plan, describing what they would accomplish if they elected. Each political party develops a policy platforms that is promises to implemented if they elected to. A platform is the term for something like this. The citizens vote in a secret by marking a ballot paper and depositing it in a ballot box that is not open until after voting period has ended. Voters must be determined if they agree with the platform promises and whether they can trust politicians to keep them if they get power. What do we think the importance of youth voting is? Our engagement and search of the better future, not only for ourselves but for the entire country, is demonstrated by our youth voting in every election. Choosing a leader who is observant, analytical, and wise represents the country's desired future. We may show our support for such a wish by voting for people with good proposal for change. We inhibit the growth of illegal activities by refusing to vote for candidates who engage in theft of public funds, extortion, and in some cases, murder. Early youth elections participation is also a step towards preparing ourselves to lead, and it's great to see my peers begin to serve municipality. As a result, I don't believe that youth are the town's hope solely because of their potential for future service. I feel that we are among those who are currently acting and leading to build the country. Many young people are already involved in politics and are capable of good governance. We are not perfect, but I feel we have the potential to improve our country. As a reason, I implore my fellow youth to exercise their right to vote and participate in the evolution of our country. Let us vote, but let us think carefully about who we vote for and what our country's future holds.
During Rizal time, the political system was very corrupt because during the Rizal era, the Spanish were the one who led the Philippines. As a citizen here in the Philippines for today's election, we should avoid or not vote for the contenders who are corrupt. We should vote for the best contenders who didn't plan to corrupt. We should vote for the contenders who have a good plan in our country.
By means of Jose Rizal's writings, such as No Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, in which the messages underlying those works disclose the political and governmental concerns that existed in our country while it was under Spanish authority. Rizal brought to light the brutal nature, pure evil, and greed and corruption of the Spaniards in the Philippines. Because of his efforts, people in the Philippines were aware of the cruel treatment they received at the hands of the Spaniards, which eventually stoked the flames of revolution. Jose Rizal battled in his own manner for our independence, and the youth learned from Rizal that We deserve good governance and freedom from corrupt authorities. Jose Rizal was a firm believer in the notion that today's youth are our nation's best hope for the future. And today's youth have demonstrated that this notion is true by exercising their right to vote and selecting candidates based on the qualifications they believe each individual candidate possesses.
In Rizal's political views, a conquered country like the Philippines should be cultivated, civilized, educated, and instructed in the science of self-government rather than exploited. Rizal's basic political reforms include reorganizing the administrative machinery, adopting the comprehensive examination, and publishing the results, and allowing Filipinos to hold government office on the same level as Spaniards. Justice is the foundation of society and government. In Rizal's essay, The Philippines a Century Hence, he predicts that the Philippines will remain a Spanish colony as long as its citizens enjoy not only the rights and privileges of Spanish crown citizens, but also the inherent rights of a human being, that the Philippines will inevitably rise in revolt against Spain if exploited and abused, and that the Philippines will be conquered.
As a first-time voter, I'm nervous about what could happen because I might make a mistake, but I believe in the ability of the Marcos Duterte administration. The country will face a big change, but I also believe that they will be able to do and continue what President Rodrigo Duterte has done for the country. Their nationalism will help them to be able to serve the Filipino people.
As a first-time voter, I am most concerned in how they present and inform their platform if they are elected, and yet remained humble. Other applicants have not been degraded by the candidate who has been promoted, while being cleanly and without slandering our fellow candidates, because that's what matters. Because degrading someone makes them stronger. When you campaign, you are not slandering others. When you declare you are leaf, rather you are reminding yourself of your platform for the country. A victory not all in May elections, but victory of unity that will usher our country to a better future. That is what Jose Rizal wishes for us. Being have patriotism in our heart, the unity that will understand each other, talk to each other as a nation, and be one. That will walk back in our history as a lesson for the future. As we reach the tail end of the campaigning, this message of unity has resonated well with the Filipino electorate. This is clearly indicated in the warm welcome of locals that the unity team received in every rally, as well as the result of pre-election service, with both BBM and Mayor Sara maintain their huge lead over their fellow candidates. There are claimers to have president and vice president that are united. Imagine what our nation can accomplish if the two highest leaders of the land are working together. The positive energy will redound to the people. It will create hopeful and productive environment as the Filipinos will be encouraged to work together as well. BBM and Mayor Sara have repeatedly emphasized the need for unity as a first step to overcome the crisis brought by the pandemic. This will also be crucial as the unity seeks to sustain the growth and development spurred by the current administration of President Duterte and to bring a more prosperous future for all Filipinos. While unity is the core message, the unity team has also laid out their platforms, which focuses on recovering from the pandemic, continuing the Build program, enhancing the country, digital infrastructure, ensure accessible healthcare for all, strengthening agriculture and tourism, and protecting the human capital. Among the unit team's priorities to strengthen agriculture is research and development. This will include continuing education and training to our farmers and fishermen on crops and on new technologies to make them competitive and give better yield. They will invest in irrigation and implement for free irrigation law, improve agricultural production through agricultural infrastructure, mechanized farming, farm inputs and equipments, and establish food terminals and kadiwa stores. I recognize BBM, Sarah, as patriotism since they constantly place the need for the peoples ahead of their own. For the country's progress, every citizen must have it. I saw that patriotism in the campaign of BBM and Sarah.
For Lenny-Kiko tandem, Vice President Leni Robredo is one of the greatest vice president here in the Philippines, and now she's running as a president of our country with her Vice President Kiko Pangilinan. Vice President Leni and Kiko are faithful and have a good service, not driven by ambition, but they want to live and desire to live the lives of every Filipino. As a voter here in the Philippines, we should vote for the best contenders that will make our country better. Our opinion is important. Although we may not realize how powerful our voice is, it is critical to express our opinions and fight for what we believe in. We are not required to attend rallies or other movements, but we should make every effort to have our voice heard, including voting. Remember that as Filipino citizens, we have the capacity to elect a leader who will improve our country. Therefore, we should use our vote wisely. If VP Leni Robredo is elected as a president here in the Philippines, her platform has an employment recovery plan, a political party reform plan, and a plan to assist the country in recovering from COVID-19, among other factors. Also, the platform of Kiko Pangilinan is to double the agricultural budget to ensure the income of farmers and fishermen increases, to promote the full implementation of the Sagip-Saka Act.
Personally, I was hoping for Leni and Kiko to win the presidency and vice presidency together. I thought that they would make a great team. Because of social media, I am now aware of their qualifications and the reasons why they should be considered for the position. I witnessed how hard Leni Robredo fought to provide assistance to persons who had gotten the COVID virus when it first came into our country. When I went to look at the Bayanihan e-Consulta website, which is a project that is run by the Office of the Vice President, a number of people said that it was a great help to them when they were having difficulties paying their medical bills. Aside from that, they have a spotless record, which means that they have not been involved in any form of corruption, that they have not been convicted of any crimes, and that they have authored a significant number of bills. They have a well-defined platform, and if you look closely, you can see that the reason they want to run for political office is to provide the people with the responsible leadership they deserve. It is clear that they are patriotic due to the love that they have for our country, as seen by the fact that they are willing to devote